I want to start looking at automation by starting in the browser. And obviously this time we're in Firefox. And I'm in Firefox because there's an add-on here called SQL Inject Me. Now, browser add-ons are a very particular type of automation. They generally tend to be pretty rudimentary, but they also generally tend to be free, and you often see them feature in very basic opportunistic SQL injection attacks. So think about the sort of things that you see from hacktivists or mischievous kids, and coincidentally they're often the same thing. But I digress. Getting back into browser add-ons. And I want to show you how it works and why there's an add-on within the browser. So I'm going to jump over to the Supercar Showdown page here, and I'm going to jump into the menu, Tools, SQL Inject Me, Open SQL Inject Me sidebar. Now you'll see that there are a couple of forms here. There's a logout form, and this is actually a form on the page with an ID of logout form. And there's another form called Unnamed Form 1. And this is actually the form behind the search page. Now I'm presently logged in. What I want to do now is go over to my account and then drop down into Change Password. Now when we get into there, we can see that there's also a form called Unnamed Form 2. And when we open that up, we'll see that there are a number of fields here on the left-hand side of the page. And what I want to do here is check each one that I want to run a SQL injection, a test against. And in fact, if we drop this down and take a look in one of these, we'll see a whole bunch of very typical injection-looking patterns. So there are a few tautologies here. We can see some union-based injection as well. And then there are some encoded attack patterns. So all of this is inevitably pretty familiar to you by this point in the course. Now what I'm going to do is just drop that menu back down and then just simply execute. Now I've got a little prompt that's appeared over here on another screen, and it's simply going through and running tests against each one of these fields. So it's testing those patterns against those fields when the form is submitted. And here we now have a report. And what we're actually seeing here is that some of these results have turned up in red. And in fact, the results in red are giving us an HTTP status code, and they're giving us the value tested. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, we'll also see that some results actually come up in green. And effectively, what the report is telling us is that some of these strings that it has posted in the form values may indicate that there is a risk of SQL injection. Now, the really important thing here is that this tool is very much about discovery as opposed to exploitation. So this is not going to get data out of the system. You'll still need to go and actually manually execute those attacks. But this sort of testing can be very useful for identifying where you should start with those attacks. And what we're really looking at here is a fuzz test, or in other words, a test where we're throwing these typical patterns at various form fields and we're just seeing what the results are, particularly as they differ from the norm. So what sort of patterns might cause us to get a result which is not consistent with the result under normal usage? However, this is really a very rudimentary way of doing fuzz testing. Let's move on and have a look at a more advanced approach to fuzz testing using Burp Suite.